Recorded in Little Italy, Louisiana. Welcome to Pinstripe Alley, the official Mobcast with A.P. Fanini. Ladies and gentlemen, made men and wise guys alike, welcome to the Pinstripe Alley, official Mobcast with me, that guy, that guy, A.P. Fanini. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will say that the last podcast or the last Mobcast has been a little bit of a ways from this one. I do apologize. A huge storm came. It was everyone who lives around me knows, and if you don't and you're out of state listening, it was a big deal. So I'm back now. I'm making a Mobcast just for you, and yeah, here we are. First of all, first and foremost, and you know what's coming, but I'll make this one pretty brief. Thank you guys so much for buying the book still. Thank you guys so much for, keeping up with everything on my YouTube channel. I appreciate that. Also watching all you guys that have shared and watched the Mob Gods series. Thank you so much for that. Working on a musical album or soundtrack, if you will, for the upcoming Gatekeepers or the actual Gatekeepers series. And I'm working on that. I'm working slowly on the third book right now. I'm not sure. And the reason why it's taking me so long is I'm not really sure if I'm going to make this the finale or we're going to go to 4 books. I don't know. I'm not sure yet because because the third book is going to be quite lengthy. That's all I can say about that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for your support throughout and listening to the Mobcast, and here we are. So, I know on the last couple of Mobcasts that I've done, I've talked about like the hitmen or a lot of different contract killers that are in the mafia. And today, I'm actually going to get a little bit more practical with it and talk about the weapons that they use to commit these murders. Now, some of if you're not a gun person, that's okay. It's okay if you're not a gun person, because in the mob, you can basically kill somebody any way that you're able to kill them. The truth is some of the most used mob tools outside of the gun, of course, because it's the gun, but a lot of tools used and weapons used are really unconventional. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those things today. The garrote is one thing that I'm going to mention. And you're probably like, what the fuck is that? Well, that's what I thought when I first heard the pronunciation of it. But once I tell you what it is, you're going to understand completely. If you don't already know what it is. But anyway, so I'm going to touch on weapons today. And I'm also going to touch on a few mobsters that made certain weapons famous. So I'm going to talk about a couple of big heavy hitters, a few bosses, a few copper regimes, and what kind of pistol that they carried around with them. Most of them carried a pistol. There's one in particular that did not, but we'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, let's get right into it. The first thing that we got to do is we got to talk about all the weapons that the mob used. So what did the mob use? Well, we know for a fact they used guns. But they also used knives, baseball bats, Molotov cocktails. If you don't know what a Molotov cocktail is, it is a type of drink. So for those of you who are like chronic alcoholics, you can take your mind from that direction. It's a Molotov cocktail. Basically, it's anything breakable. It's a breakable container. And inside of this breakable container, we'll get to that. I'm like getting ahead of myself, but screw it. I'll get right to it. Molotov cocktail is a breakable container that you fill with gasoline and oil or really anything petrol. It was called a lot of different things when it first came out. It's been called the poor man's grenade, the fire bomb, the petrol bomb, the gasoline bomb, the bottle bomb, all kinds of things. Sometimes it's called Molotov. It's called a Molly. But I mean, basically it's one of the most effective, basically makeshift man-made incendiary weapons, and it was used all throughout the 20s. Actually, more in the earliest years of the 20th century, and then on into the 20s and 30s. I know Al Capone, Frankie Yale, Johnny Torrio, people like this. They definitely used fire bombs or Molotov cocktail. So that's what a Molotov cocktail is, used constantly throughout the 20s. So basically, Molotov cocktail would mostly be used, I would say, for extortion, or to show that the price you pay for not going along with the mob's extortion, that being the Shylock business. Someone steps in and says, if you don't pay me protection money every week, something's going to happen to this place. Well, the guy running the place wants to basically push back and say, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not giving you anything. I don't know you. I don't owe you anything. Well, next thing you know, a building is burned down, and it's burned down fairly quickly. And, you know, by the time they get there, there's really nothing that can be recovered. You know, so, and the reason for that is because they use so many Molotov cocktails. They use them because their spread is so immense. Its radius of fire, like, that sounded ridiculous, I'm sorry. Its radius of explosion, that's what I'm trying to say here. Shit. Its radius of explosion is so great for such a small, or for such an easily made weapon. So basically what they would do most of the time is take the liquid, put it in the breakable container, shove a dirty rag or something in there that they could actually use as a makeshift fuse. So they'd light the rag on fire and then just toss it. And once the glass breaks, the fire makes connection, and everywhere that the liquid touches catches a blaze. And you could think of 7 or 8 of these inside of just a regular, let's say, grocery store, a coffee shop, maybe even a bigger office building. Imagine that. There's no way in hell, unless everything in there is like anti-flammable by, device, they're screwed. And they knew this. And a lot of these older buildings, which we do have a lot of things now are very much fireproof, and precautions are a little different now. But just imagine back then, when everything was really made of flammable material, there was nothing that would keep them from either paying up or burning their shit to the ground. So yeah, Molotov cocktail, very effective. I'm pretty sure it's very effective now, but I don't recommend it at all. I recommend the drink, but definitely not the weapon if you want to stay out of 15 to life naturally. So with that being said, now that we got the Molotov cocktail out of the way, I want to talk about a very common weapon that they use outside of the pistol, and that is the knife. Now, why do I want to talk about the knife? Well, there's someone in particular that I want to discuss, with the knife, but where did the knife come from? So we're going to take a trip back real quick, but not far. Well, only like 4 millennia. But the earliest knives their material consisted of flint. Later on, knives were made out of metal, symmetrical double-edged daggers. These were composed of copper. So that's what's considered the first knife, first blade. I don't know. These things were weapons or tools or whatever. Whatever the case, this certain thing got into the hand. This certain, we're gonna say tool. I'll say tool for this certain gentleman because if I had to go down the list of stabbings, it would be the exact result if I had to go down the same list or the same type of list with pistols. It would take me forever and a year. So I'm going to talk about one person in particular whose forte was knives in the first place. But yeah, like I said, earliest knives made of flint. A lot of mobsters use knives for for up close kills, for silent kills, for sometimes certain parts of the body being sliced as a message kill, for someone to find, or maybe even they might even carve words. Who knows when it came to La Cosa Nostra and the mafia and the American mafia between the 20s and the 80s, or even the 90s, really there really was no limit to the savagery. So using knives is something that was used constantly. It was even preferred by many over guns, just because, like, mostly back then, you could kill someone and sever artery. There was no evidence left behind. Now forensics has made it so impossible. Well, not impossible, but let me definitely double back. Not impossible, but have made it very, very, very tough. It's become a very big dilemma for a lot of murderers out there, I guess, which is a good thing. I'm not like rooting for them, but it definitely has. And the knife itself has been used, outside of the mob, clearly, but it has been a very, very, prominent symbol in the mafia for some. One in particular who was known for his use of the knife as it is, was a man named Willie Two Knife Altieri. And the chilling thing about Willie Two Knife Altieri, before I even tell you what he's done or what he's famous for, is that he was never caught. He was never, he actually disappeared. He disappeared around 1928. And very little to nothing is known about his current location or his previous current location. I would imagine he is deceased by now. But anyway, they never caught him. So this man was running free. And the reason why I bring up this man, his nickname was Two Knife. And I mean, it's clearly why they call him Two Knife, because he was so enthralled with knives and blades that it was said that he even slept with them on his person at night. He was known, whenever he would catch his victims, or he would, make the first plunge to kill them, he used two knives, and he kept them around his waist. He had this leather band that he kept around his waist with the two knives starred there. And he killed his victims savagely. He would use a Colt gunshot, point blank, right to the skull of the victims. And this is something, it was either that, and also, unfortunately, rape choking. That's something that this man was known for. These are, but I mean, that has nothing to do with knives, but I mean, this just shows the savagery of this man. Altieri was known for dispatching with two knives, burying them deep into his victims before going on about with his sadistic ways. So when you want to talk about knives and the mafia, this is the fucking guy. I mean, I have to say, not unfamiliar to anybody else in the mafia who's also a sociopath, but if we wanted to talk about someone who did, and I mean, obviously this dude was in the 20s, so this is another time when, knives were a lot more prominent than now. You bring a knife to a gunfight now, we all know what's going to happen most of the time, but yeah, so the knife, the gun, we'll get to the gun in a moment. I want to talk about also touch very quickly on it slowly. Actual antonym coming out of my brain. I need to just really chill out. Baseball bats were used a lot. I don't know whether it be, most of the time it was a wooden bat back then. This weapon, I mean, definitely can be used to kill somebody. Most of the time, used to prove a point, used to smash belongings, used to smash out glass, used to break, I don't know, vases of dead grandma's ashes, whatever is going to piss off the people that they come to see or make them, sad and afraid. In all honesty, the baseball bat basically it might have saved many people's lives if you think about it, because had they not been cracked with a baseball bat, they could have just been shot in the head. I know for a fact that in the 1920s and 30s, the baseball bat was used by many people, like in the 5 Points Gang with Lucky Luciano and those guys. You can hear stories of how they would go into places and take the bat with them, and that was a big deal back then. Like it was you step in there with a bat and you say, I'm with so and so, and it's like you either pay up or get your brain smashed in, and they would get away with it, and in their mind they were justified with it, and the cops felt they were justified too because the mafia was lining their pockets. So I know I just pulled a long Jack and the Beanstalk vine directly out of the subject of baseball bats, but you can understand how important the baseball bat was at the time before there were more effective ways of handling extortion situations. So yeah, I think in the 20s, since we're already in the 20s, we're going to go to 1928. Now, I want to talk about the Thompson machine gun from 1928. Okay, the Thompson machine gun, which everybody knows. If you know what it is right now, you've all said it while I said this. The Tommy gun is what it was called. Can shoot 850 plus rounds per minute. It had a 50 round drum magazine, and it was basically created to shoot consistently without reloading, without having to reload, and that's what it was for. I mean, non-stop rounds, as many as you could fit until the gun ran out or the barrel melted. Basically, this gun was used by so many different mobsters in the early 20th century. Greatly known for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre shooting. Um, used, I mean, hell, for some reason, I'm kind of a like media nerd as well. The first thing that comes to my mind is Dick Tracy and the scene where, which the movie's crazy as hell, and it is. I don't want to go as far to say it corny because I still think it's a classic. But I mean, at the very beginning of the movie, they set the pace for Flat Top Jones Jr. One of the gangsters of the city steps out and he pulls out a Tommy gun and writes on the wall, and it basically, when the smoke clears, it says "Eat lead, Tracy." I know they didn't do that because that was just amazing, but that's the first thing that comes to mind, and they really hit the nail on the head with that because during that time, I call it the jalopy age. I don't know why, but that's during the time when that was the most prominent gun. It was a retired machine gun. After World War One, I believe, and after that was used, the police had a lot of trouble with this new gun being brought in. I mean, they were like the mobsters that were shooting out with the police. The police didn't have a leg to stand on like they used to, until they started upping their arsenal as well, which came a little bit later. So let me see. Since we are on the subject of the Thompson machine gun, let's talk about the person that actually, it was his favorite gun so much that he was named after it. George Kelly Barnes, better known as Machine Gun Kelly, the real Machine Gun Kelly, was American gangster. He was from Tennessee, and his operation basically spanned out mostly through the Prohibition era. Now, like I said, his nickname was from the Thompson submachine gun, and he actually, one of the things he's most known for, of course he used the submachine gun for the holdup, is best known. He kidnapped a man named Charles F. Urschel in July of 1933. I'm really fucking up today, but since the podcast, you forgive me, right? From which he and his gang collected a $200,000 ransom. Now, this is the thing. He is best known for using the machine gun, the Thompson machine gun, and everything. He was really widely known for these bank robberies he would pull, and he pulled several. The FBI got involved, and really, they eventually caught Machine Gun Kelly, but even his wanted poster gave the description at the bottom. It's like expert machine gunner, and I'm sure reading that back in the day is like someone was shitting their pants because they were basically learning how to use regular guns, and they got some psychopath running around holding up banks and saying, Machine Gun Kelly, and he has a machine gun. I'd shit my pants. Sure. So with that being said, the Thompson machine gun, very powerful weapon. The sawed-off, another gun that has definitely made its mark in mafia history, used several times over in many different murders, and I might I don't think I'd do an entire episode about different people that have been killed by these weapons. I mean, that would be kind of an extension of this one, but basically that gun, right along with the Thompson machine gun, had its place in history with the mob. The Colt M1911, it's a semi-auto handgun. It has great shooting distance. It has a very low chance of misfiring or being jammed, and that's definitely something that they would want, because in the heat of battle, the last thing you want is your gun to jam up and then you eat a mouthful of hollow tips. The Browning automatic rifle, all those types of guns, they were all used in either shootouts, assassinations, point blank killings, and the majority of the time when we use a gun to kill someone that's already their fate is already sealed, the mafia tradition is down on your knees, hands behind your back, bullet to the forehead. That's usually how it happens. That's the most conventional representation of a mafia killing. I mean, granted that they were way worse than that, but that's kind of like the medium for murder for a mafia. Or a mafia family or copper regime. But a lot of these guns and weapons and such were used by several different mobsters, and a lot of these people had trademark pistols and weapons, so they would keep one on them that they really did trust. One of them in particular, Al Capone, carried a Smith & Wesson Model 10 on him at all times. This gun was commonly used by a lot of mobsters as well as the law. And, it's commonly chambered in a .38. It was a very special or very particular specialty gun because it was lightweight, not a lot of kick, easy to shoot, got the job done, carried an ample amount of bullets, came through in a clinch when it needed to. Just something that was trusted by, if it's trusted by the law, definitely trusted by the mob. And that was just a favorite of Al Capone. A lot of people I don't know if they're familiar with John Dillinger. John Dillinger, another obvious madman, terrorized Midwest, 1933, killed 10 men, wounded a lot of others, bank robberies, so on and so forth. So definitely earned his keep in the notoriety department. He basically carried a Colt 38 Super around. It was able to shoot, the grip was full auto with extended magazines, sometimes with a Thompson foregrip. So this gun could be modified to shoot fully auto. At the time, I would imagine this would be kind of dangerous, and I'm sure a few of these have exploded and blew someone's hand or face off. I mean, I'm not being hopeful, but I'm just saying, let's be honest. At early technology with these types of guns, I mean, hell, speaking of guns in general, the first gun that historians consider the first gun was actually the Chinese fire lance. And the way it worked is it would be a tube of bamboo that you would put gunpowder into and a spear, and they would use it to fire the spear from the bamboo. So imagine how dangerous that was. I'm sure a lot of people met their end to some exploding bamboo shit. And this was actually invented in the 10th century. So if this wasn't a gun in its incubator, or I'm not even saying its infancy stage, it's like still in the womb, but they call this the first gun. And it's interesting to me that gunpowder was actually invented in the 9th century. So this was already in the making. They were already working on this as far as like making this this weapon handheld and portable. But we've come a long way since then, because I gotta say, to set a piece of bamboo full of gunpowder on fire to shoot probably a very jagged and rusty spear out of the end, I can imagine that the results are fucked. And that's all I have to say about that. So yeah, that's a little history on the gun. That's the history, on that gun, on guns in general. Excuse me, I'm dying over here. Babyface Nelson. A lot of people don't know about Babyface Nelson. Maybe you do. If you're a mafioso historian, you definitely know who he is. He's a jewel thief, raided homes of wealthy owners, so on and so forth, and did it very consistently over a long period of time. And finally, they caught him. But he carried a Colt 1911 45. Now, this pistol that he kept with him it has a very good reputation, or it did, for the time. This is also another gun that was used during the Prohibition, or after the Prohibition era, shortly after, in the 30s, excuse me. That was not during the Prohibition era. Around 1930, 1934, around that era. But yeah, definitely used a lot among mobsters. And it was Babyface Nelson's gun of choice. And I guarantee you that if you called him Babyface Nelson to his face, he would show you his Colt 1911. And then he would show you the bullets. And it'd be the last thing you ever see. He hated that name. People were popped for calling him that. That's how much he hated that name. So Babyface Nelson, we can say it freely now, but back then you would have got your ass knocked off. And that's just how it is. Babyface Nelson. Ugh. I don't know. I don't know, man. I would have had to fight the urge really hard to call this grown man Babyface Nelson. Oh boy. So yeah, Babyface Nelson. So with that being said, let's see, Babyface Nelson, Pretty Boy Floyd. If you guys aren't familiar with Pretty Boy Floyd, he was a Georgia resident, grew up in Georgia. A man named Charles Floyd, born in 1904. He was born in Georgia, grew up in Oklahoma on the farm, and basically he began doing he did some white collar crime, mostly regularly. He took part in payroll robbery. He sold drugs and assaulted. He did a lot of different things. He has a long rap sheet. We'll just say that about Pretty Boy Floyd. But as far as his weapon goes, he carried a Colt 1903, and it was hammerless. They call it the pocket hammerless. This gun, its size and its capacity of ammo, it was such a small gun, but it carried a lot of firepower, smaller firepower, but still ammunition nonetheless, or more ammunition than normal. And bank robbers especially enjoyed it, because if they needed a smaller gun in the clinch for whatever reason, for whatever dilemma or predicament that they get into, they will still have a pistol that will have ample amounts of bullets and still be able to carry in their boot, their sock, or something like that. But yeah, this gun is another favorite of many, but known mainly for Pretty Boy Floyd. And if you look at Pretty Boy Floyd, well, you be the judge. But yeah, so so that's the pistols. And I mean, I wanted to go over I kind of wanted to have an introduction to each thing, but as everything in life, nothing pans out to what it originally is supposed to be. So there's that. Hope that history lesson worked. So yeah, that's most of the weapons that they use in the mafia. I really, like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk about this thing called a garrote, if some of you don't know what it is. A garrote is basically anything that can be used to strangle someone. If I'm not mistaken, it was a piece of fiber wire or something of the sort used. I can't remember exactly because it's been a while. I know in The Godfather to kill Luca Brasi right off the top, but the way that he was killed, the way a lot of people are killed in these mafia movies, it's a favorite tool outside of the ballers. It's a favorite weapon used by video game character, the Hitman. And I know this because I love that game. I love basically all of those games. And the garrote is anything. It could be anything described by many, a piano wire, fishing line, any type of cord, extension cord, basically anything that's strong enough to get the job done and will endure the struggle. A garrote. So it was just very effective and popular among mobsters because, I mean, it could be, if you were good enough, it could be semi-silent. There was no, depending on how hard you pulled the rope around someone's throat, there was no mess really to clean up. I mean, there was no, there was no murder weapon that you could easily leave behind. I mean, to destroy something like that is, much less conspicuous than it would be a gun with serial numbers and so on and so forth. The garrote used by many. Some basically found, with their heads almost pulled completely off, depending on how hard they had pulled it. Some people, it wasn't enough to kill them. They had to make a point, and they left markings and scarrings. And usually if there was something, or a predicament, or excuse me, not predicament, if there was a scene like that, you would usually be guaranteed to see somebody's innards or windpipes. And before I get off of that topic, the several people that, when we talk about guns, just how common they were, and I know I'm jumping back a page, but Paul Castellano, and I've mentioned that name many, many times before, gunned down in front of Sparks Steakhouse, okay? St. Valentine's Day Massacre, 7 Thompson machine guns, probably other guns as well. Angelo Bruno, gun right to the back of the head, shotgun blast actually to the back of the head, and a famous picture sitting in his car of his mouth wide open, head leaning back, mouth wide open, blood everywhere. Discretion advised. Albert Anastasia, gunned down while getting his hair cut by basically the guy, I did mention this, I spoke about him in the last Mobcast, ran the group Murder Inc., which was ran out of a candy store. But yeah, this man was killed Park Sheraton Hotel, 7th Avenue and West 55th Street, right in New York, gunned right down. Carmine Galante, in the backyard of a restaurant on Knickerbocker Avenue. And he was killed with machine gun fire. But I don't want to say it's the cool thing, but he was the man all the way till the end. Carmine Galante's nickname was the cigar. If you go and look at the picture of his body whenever he was killed, he died with a cigar still hanging out of his mouth. Now, I don't want to, be the authority on this, but that's some G shit. Bugsy Siegel, another one, 8 bullets. He was shot in the head twice through a window, just chilling in his girlfriend's home. And the bullet actually caused his left eye to blow out of his socket. So the gun, these are just a couple. Like I said, I'd have to go through an entire Bible of assassinations with firearms. But yeah, the garrote, the gun, the knife, the bat, anything really, a brick. I mean, we're getting down to really nitty gritty shit here. It would be just about anything that could be used as a weapon. And it was used quite often by mobsters back in the day. So yeah, there is that. So yeah, I might cut it a little bit short today, but I am going to give at the end of the podcast, since that's where we are now. I wanted to once again thank everybody who has been supporting me and my work. And I also wanted to say that the first and second books, audiobooks, are on the way. A lot of people have been asking me about that. They've been, because I know that I had no idea. I knew that a lot of people enjoyed audiobooks, but I didn't realize the market for it was like that. I didn't realize that there were so many auditory readers out there, and that's perfectly fine. Because to be 100% honest with you, I have been recording that audiobook, and it has been absolute 100% gold. I have enjoyed every second of recording that book, and I am doing all the voices for all of the characters, including all 7 members of the Geodesio family, every other character. It has been a lot of fun for me, and I can't wait to release the first one. I cannot. I'm putting 110% into it, but I'm also enjoying experience. So yeah, you're going to know that. You're going to feel the energy from the books. I'm going to take you... It opens me another avenue to take you exactly where I want to take you in this book. And I promise you, if you've read the book and you enjoyed that and you want to give the audiobook a listen, I sincerely urge you to do so when it comes out, because what you already enjoyed about the book is going to come to life even further. And for those of you who haven't read the book, I promise you, your introduction to this book through audio is going to be phenomenal. I guarantee it. And I appreciate everyone who's read it already. And, I can't stress that enough. The support that I appreciate from you guys. It's been just, it's been great. And I will continue to do that. Like I said, the 3rd book is on the way. Website's on the way. Entire soundtrack is on the way. It's in the works. Just taking everything day by day. And once it's all finished, I will keep you all in the loop. I promise. It's going to be awesome. And I can't wait for it. So anyway, that is the Mobcast for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Please follow me on Facebook, AP Fanini, on Twitter at AP Fanini Author. Just follow there. I'll keep you posted. Join my mailing list, which if you haven't yet, the link is at my Facebook, and I'll actually, put that link for you guys to see. And so like I said, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you guys have a great day. I'm out of here.